Coming up today on the breakdown, a federal appeals court clears the way for a lawsuit in the police killing of Amir Locke. Well, coming up today on the breakdown, the federal appeals court clears the way for a lawsuit in the police killing of Amir Locke, shot during a no-knock warrant while asleep on the couch. And the National Guard will remain on the streets of Washington, D.C. through the end of 2026 as Donald Trump backs off plans to deploy troops in several other major cities. Plus, Kanye West addresses the Black community, opening up about mental health and why he says treatment matters. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, January 27th, and we are so happy that you're here with us. We have a lot to cover on the breakdown with Brittany Noble, so let's get started. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit has ruled a lawsuit involving the police killing of Amir Locke can move forward now. Locke was asleep on his cousin's couch in Minneapolis in February of 2022 when a SWAT team executed a no-knock warrant. He was not the person that officers were looking for and was shot and killed by an officer seconds after police entered. His parents are suing the city of Minneapolis, alleging violations of his constitutional rights and a broader pattern of excessive force and improper use of no-knock warrants by the Minneapolis Police Department. So tonight, Roland Martin will talk exclusively with Amir Locke's mother, Karen. That's happening at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Black Star Network. You will not want to miss that conversation on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, Maryland Congressman Kwaisi Mfume is introducing a new bill. It will make it easier for Americans to track their mail-in ballots. The goal is to increase the transparency of mail-in ballots in hopes of boosting the confidence in our elections. This will also help Americans verify that their votes are counted. The Vote by Mail Tracking Act will add an official logo and standardized tracking barcodes to each mail-in ballot. This will allow voters to track their ballot status. Well, the National Guard will be on the streets of Washington, D.C. until the end of 2026. Meanwhile, Trump has at least temporarily dropped his push to deploy National Guard troops in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland, Oregon, which had provoked legal challenges. He has also backed off from his threat to invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy troops to quell protests in Minnesota. Since Washington is a congressionally established federal district, as president, Trump can directly control the police and D.C. National Guard. This has enabled him to sidestep the legal challenges that he has faced in other states. Trump activated 800 members of D.C. National Guard in August under an emergency order. Those numbers were quickly augmented by troops from states run by Republican governors. The Florida legislators' Democratic Black Caucus is calling out Attorney General James Upmeyer. They want Governor Ron DeSantis to remove him from his post. This comes after his office says he will not enforce or demand affirmative action laws. 28 Democratic members of the Black Caucus stood together last week on the Capitol Rotunda to sound the alarm on his decision rooted in a 2023 U.S. Supreme Court affirmative action decision related to college admissions. Also, more Democrats are pushing for the impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. This is following another fatal shooting by federal immigration authorities in Minneapolis. Democrat Senator Jackie Rosen says her department's latest attempt to mislead the American public regarding the killing of Alex Preddy is shameful, and she must be impeached and removed from office immediately. Both of the shootings have sparked massive backlash over President Trump's immigration agenda, which is losing MAGA support. Democratic Congresswoman Doris Matsui is also calling for impeachment of Noem. Here's what she's saying. Also in North Carolina, a former police officer is suing another ex-officer who shot him more than 10 times during a 2019 drug raid. Former officer Clarence Belton, the only Black member of the FBI Safe Streets Task Force, was first accidentally shot by another task force member during a standoff with a suspect. As Belton tried to crawl to safety, he was then shot repeatedly by task force officer Heather Loveridge until someone yelled that Belton was a cop. The Charlotte District Attorney's Office declined to file criminal charges. Loveridge was fired in 2020 and now argues that the civil lawsuit should be dismissed under qualified immunity. More than 6 years later, the case remains unresolved as a court decides whether Loveridge is protected by the qualified immunity. Florida Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost says he was assaulted at a party during the Sundance Film Festival in Utah. Frost says the man who attacked him told him that Donald Trump would deport him. In a statement, Park City Police Department said the suspect, Christian Young, was arrested and booked on charges of aggravated burglary and 2 counts of simple assault, with each charge subject to a sentencing enhancement. The 29-year-old lawmaker, the first Afro-Cuban and the first member of Gen Z elected to Congress, thanked venue security and Park City Police for their response to the incident. A new study shows the link between police brutality and heart health in Black women. That study comes from North Carolina State University. It shows that worrying about police brutality and harassment is having an impact on heart health. The top concern for Black women is the potential interactions between their children and police. The study examined 422 Black women between 36 and 46. During the study, the women were asked questions, including concerns about their own future interactions with police, their experiences with law enforcement, and concerns for their children's future. Researchers found the related stressors contributed to higher risk of heart disease and hypertension through chronic stress and experiencing or fear of police misconduct. Actor Quentin Aaron, best known for his role as Michael Orr in The Blind Side, collapsed at his Atlanta home. He was on life support while doctors treated him for a blood infection. His wife says he's now partially breathing on his own. He has opened his eyes and was able to give doctors a thumbs up, though doctors are still working to determine the cause of his condition. A GoFundMe launched to help cover medical expenses has surpassed his $35,000 goal, as Aaron faces a long recovery that could include physical therapy and relearning how to walk. Well, rapper Kanye West is opening up about his mental health in the full-page letter published in the Wall Street Journal. West says a brain injury from a car accident decades ago contributed to his bipolar disorder diagnosis, which he says did not come until 2023. He also describes a month-long manic episode in early 2025 that he says upended his life. In the letter, West addresses the Black community directly, acknowledging its role in his success and expressing regret for letting people down. The statement is sparking renewed conversations about mental health, accountability, and the stigma in the Black community. Well, Black women-led skincare brand Topicals has closed another round of funding, continuing its rapid growth in the beauty industry. It was founded in 2020 by Olamide Olaway. The brand was created out of her search for effective solutions for hyperpigmentation, eczema, and dark spots, conditions that disproportionately affect people of color. The latest funding round is backed by Angel Reese, who Forbes lists among the top paid women athletes of last year, and Nigerian global music star Rema. Since its launch, Topicals has raised more than $22.6 million and built a loyal following through its culturally attuned branding with an intentional focus on inclusive skincare. Well, coming up ahead on the breakdown, with two fatal federal shootings in Minneapolis in just a couple of weeks, WURD radio host Dr. James Peterson will connect those deaths to a bigger picture how violence in America is ordered and who gets public sympathy or outrage. That story is coming up after the break. And remember, for more news headlines and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day, please visit us at the Black Star Network. We are your source for stories that matter to our community. We'll be right back. You're watching The Breakdown with Brittany Noble on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
What's happening? This is your man, Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching the Black Star Network.
Welcome back. In case you missed it last night on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Tennessee Congressman Justin Pearson joined Roland in a conversation and more on Jasmine Crockett's debate to maintain her seat in the Senate. Take a listen.
All right, then. We appreciate that. Folks, we've been telling you about what's been happening in Memphis. There's been a lot of focus in targeting of the Elon Musk, his XAI, and the turbines there, and the impact it is having on residents, Black residents there in Memphis. You've had city leaders and others who have allowed them to operate with impunity, not really holding them accountable. But now the EPA has issued a ruling. State Representative Justin Pearson joins us right now. I'm glad to have you back on the show. So take us through what action has the EPA, what have they actually said about these turbines?
Yeah, the EPA affirmed what our community has said from the beginning, that Elon Musk and XAI were illegally operating gas turbines without a permit. They built a power plant and didn't go to the health department or any other agency asking for a permit to do so. And they polluted the air of our community more than the international airport. We're talking about thousands of tons of nitrogen oxides, 17.2 tons of formaldehyde sprayed into the air of this community. And there was no way for us to stop them because the mayor of our city and our county supported this. The health department supported this, and the Chamber of Commerce, the Memphis Chamber of Commerce, led by Ted Townsend and Bobby White, were all supportive. And so it's very strange that Trump's EPA was the one to actually say the people in Boxtown, the people in Westwood, the people in my district, and District 86 were actually on the right side of this. And Elon Musk and a lot of the Democratic institutions, lowercase d, that were supposed to protect our community, that were supposed to prevent this from happening, failed us.
All right, so what next? I mean, that is huge that Trump's EPA, I mean, listen, they kissed the ass of companies left and right that they would actually issue this kind of ruling.
Yeah, I mean, it affirms what the Clean Air Act has been saying the whole time. And what we were telling people was, look, they're asking whether or not there is an exemption. And if they're asking about it, that means currently there isn't one. And so anything that this company was saying about how they needed to have an exemption or have a year to be able to pollute as much as they want was completely false and was completely wrong. And so it affirms that the Clean Air Act is still the federal law of the land and it needs to be followed. And the reality is we're actually in a fight now because they took these same gas turbines, moved them to South Haven, which is just across the border, and they're now illegally operating them in South Haven. But as you know, when it comes to environmental justice, the communities that are most impacted are Black communities, Latino communities, poor communities, even poor white communities. And South Haven, Mississippi is the only county in the entire state that has an F in air quality. And so this is perpetuating harm that already existed before XAI. And we have a hearing on February 17th, which we're sending a lot of people to speak up about this because the air don't care if it's in Mississippi or if it's in Memphis. We share the air and the consequences are going to fall disproportionately on people who have COPD, disproportionately have asthma, disproportionately already have lung ailments, which is historically communities that have been polluted like our district right here in Memphis, especially in Southwest Memphis. And so it's going to be an organizing tool for us, but it's also for communities across the country that are fighting these data centers. They can't illegally pollute our neighborhoods. They have to go through permit processes, which allow for us to be able to have a say about what they are doing. These billionaire games can't continue to destroy our communities on the backs of poor folk.
So has the city responded? Has the county responded to this EPA ruling, affirming what you and others have been saying?
They are as quiet as they have ever been. I mean, the mayor, he put out a op-ed calling our community liars. Now he has nothing to say. The other mayor went in front of the TV, said he had no concerns. Now he has nothing to say. The Shelby County Health Department won't even apologize to the community for allowing this illegal polluting to happen. The company itself, XAI, which had op-eds and sent all these mailers calling our communities liars and sending out this propaganda from the Chamber of Commerce. None of them have said anything about the affirmation of what our community knew to be right the entire time. And so folks at Memphis Community Against Pollution, Young, Gifted, and Green, Southern Environmental Law Center, NAACP, while we are celebrating the truth, it is really painful to see those who were against the community being completely and utterly silent after attacking us for over a year about our stance on this.
This is a CNBC article. It said the EPA's updated rule clarifies that those kinds of turbines can't be designated as non-road engines, and the companies must also obtain Clean Air Act permits before installing them, particularly if their aggregate emissions will go above major source thresholds of pollutions. And it says right here, the Shelby County Health Department in Memphis previously allowed XAI to designate its turbines as non-road engines and to start using them without any public comment and environmental impact review, as would have been required in a standard permitting process. The whole point of the city and the county is to protect the residents. These are the people. So I would hope, first of all, you got some elections coming up there. I would hope this is going to be an issue at the ballot box for the folk who don't give a damn about the air quality of the residents.
Absolutely. And we got these elections coming up here in May, on May 5th. And before that, for early voting for a new county mayor, for folks on the county commission. And next year, we're going to have city council elections and a new city mayor election, because we have a responsibility as elected officials to protect our citizens, to protect our communities. That's the job. You swear your hand on a Bible or the Quran or whatever it is, and you swear an oath to protect our communities. And instead, a billionaire and $1 billion corporation was protected more than people who have a cancer risk that's 4 times the national average, people who are dealing with 18 toxic release inventory facilities surrounding our community already, who have historically been marginalized and historically been mistreated. And the people in power perpetuated the harm. And it took this EPA to say, you know what, they were right the entire time. And now those same folks who push this narrative, same folks who push this propaganda, who have all these fancy titles, they're now silent. And so they're going to perpetuate this harm, pretending like our community wasn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to be, which is why we have to get new people in power who are going to hold them accountable. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
All right, State Rep Justin Pearson, we still appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate you too.
Thank you very much. Folks, on Saturday, the Texas AFL-CIO held a debate between Texas State Rep James Tallarico and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Both of them are running for the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate in Texas. The primary is going to taking place on March 3rd. Here are some of what they had to say on Saturday.
Ms. Crockett, you have said you would absolutely at least support an impeachment inquiry into Donald Trump if he engaged in misconduct. Under what specific circumstances, if any, would you support impeachment or an impeachment inquiry? And where do you draw the line? You have 60 seconds.
So I want to be clear about this. The statement he just made was from a while ago, before things got as bad as they are right now. I think that there is more than enough to impeach Donald Trump, period, on the face of it. In fact, Al Green has put on the floor more than once impeachment resolutions, and I have voted for them. Now, ultimately, do I think that we should go through the formal process so that we can do all of the data collection that we need to do so that we can have all of the evidence? Absolutely, because basically it is a prosecution. And so we need to make sure that people are actually honoring those subpoenas. We need to get all of the information. And so I think that we should start at an impeachment inquiry. We should go and get all of the information. We should allow the American people to hear and see that information, call their representatives, urge them to make the votes. And then ultimately, if we feel like there is enough evidence that has been presented in committee, which it most likely would be judiciary where I currently serve, then we take that vote. We take it to the entire House floor. Now, there are those that say there is no point because we impeached him twice and then he ultimately did not get convicted. Is that where you're going?
Ms. Crockett, but name one thing specifically that he should be impeached for.
I think that he should be impeached as it relates to his unlawful use of the tariffs. That's a very easy one. He doesn't have the legal authority to do it. He, everything else as it relates to his legal authority, I think the courts have stopped him, whether we're talking about birthright citizenship and some others, but the courts have not yet weighed in specifically on the impeachments. The tariffs.
All right. Mr. Tallarico, while you have been critical of Donald Trump, you have not publicly called for impeachment. If elected to the Senate, under what specific circumstances, if any, would you support impeachment or an impeachment inquiry? And where do you draw the line? You have 60 seconds.
I think the administration has certainly committed impeachable offenses, particularly when it comes to using their public roles to enrich themselves. I will conduct myself in any impeachment proceedings in the United States Senate just as I did in the Texas legislature when impeachment charges were brought against our corrupt Attorney General. I evaluated all the evidence. I said it was the most serious vote I ever casted because I was removing a duly elected public official from office. The person who I voted to impeach is now running for this Senate seat on the other side of the aisle. And it should underscore the importance of stopping a Senator Ken Paxton, maybe the most corrupt politician in America, and that's saying something. So to answer your question, Gromer, people can look at how I conducted myself in those impeachment proceedings. I will pore through the evidence. I will treat it with the utmost seriousness, and I will vote my conscience, and I will do my duty.
And I believe I heard you say something about enriching himself financially, but be specific. What's one thing you would vote to impeach?
Gromer, I'm not going to articulate articles of impeachment here at a political debate, but if those charges are brought in the U.S. House and they come before the U.S. Senate, I will carefully evaluate them, I will weigh the evidence, and I will do my duty as a U.S. Senator.
All right, so let's go to our panel here. This is going to be an interesting race to watch. And the thing that just jumps out to me at the most here, it sort of just trips me out, Joy, is when I look at these progressives who are acting a fool and understand Tallarico has the right to run, Crockett has the right to run, others have dropped out. And guess what? You let them run. They didn't attack each other in the debate. Let it be about policy. Who has the best ground game? Who gets their voters out? That's what happens. And if your candidate doesn't win on March 3rd, you know what you do? You consolidate. You get behind the winner. And you say, let's take down who's going to be the Republican running, whether it's incumbent John Cornyn, Congressman Wesley Hunt, or it's the...
Well, folks, your support is critical to what we do. You can support us via Cash App using the Stripe code in the bottom left-hand corner. You can also help us with credit cards. Use the same thing. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle at rolandsmartin.com. Rolling at rolandmartinunfiltered.com. If you're old school, you can send checks and money orders payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Our goal is to raise $1 million by December 31st, and we really, really appreciate your support. Stay with us. We have much more coming up after the break on The Breakdown, streaming live on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Indianapolis-based organization is building a powerful bridge between art and social impact. Gang Gang is on a mission to center beauty, equity, and culture using art to challenge mindsets and connect people across different backgrounds, races, religions, and lived experiences. Joining me now are the founders of Gang Gang, Melania and Al Bacon. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yes, you said it perfectly.
Yeah, right on.
Well, I want you to break it down for me, Melania. Tell me a little bit more about the mission of Gang Gang and how you guys got started.
Oh my goodness. Yes, we are Melina and Alan Bacon. I go by Molly, and we have been for 5 years advocating for equitable cities by way of the arts, as you so eloquently put it as well. As you recall, 2020 was a time where cities stopped. People were in crisis, cities were in crisis, and we asked ourselves, what is the answer here? What do we know to be true? Our careers, our experiences, our kind of innate mantra told us to turn to the artists.
Yeah, and if everything 2020 was about what separates people, we knew art and culture would be the thing to bring people together. So that was the impetus of Gang Gang. And, our mission is to center beauty, equity, and culture in cities by activating creative economies. So we get to tell cool stories, protect, produce, preserve culture and histories and all the things. It's really fun work that intersects, which is about every aspect of life.
What I'm really impressed by with your organization is a core part of your mission is supporting the artists, not just creatively, but economically. So tell us more about how you were able to help the artists financially.
Sure. So, our work is interesting and really fun because we get to kind of hover at the macro and the micro, or kind of the tactical level. And so for 5 years, we have launched programs that support musicians, that support rock artists, that support painters, sculptors, like across disciplines. There have been efforts on the ground to listen to artists, to understand what the need is, especially in Indianapolis, and then, broader, like what are the needs that are local, but that resonate across the ecosystem, across the industries. So we've been learning and we've been responding in the moment, like learning and acting in real time. This has been equity in action, so on the ground level, I think about the Festival of Black Joy and just all of the efforts that bring community together and that anchor art and the artist. That has been the way that we can talk about the macro mission, which is to say that society has, a misnomer and a misunderstanding around the value of artists. And the whole, mindset of a starving artist is contradictory to their value, to what they're contributing to our everyday lives. And so we are trying to wake people up to the art that is all around us, that is, in our everyday lives, that is giving us the quality of lives that is in our hair and in our nails and in what we get, what we wear, what we listen to, what we drive. All of that was originated by an artist's mind. And so we have been preaching that and proposing that to cities to re-narrate how they're talking about artists so that it impacts their bottom line. And we've been behaving that and advocating for that for 5 years.
Yeah. And it impacts the bottom line, but also impacts our culture. Art is very centered to who we are as a people. 400 years ago when we landed here on ships, we're in, slavery, and, but we have the Negro spirituals, we have quilting, we have this messaging and this communication. And then, right after slavery, here's Jim Crow and Willie Lynch, but we have the Harlem Renaissance, and, we understand politics, and we're growing our culture, and we're writing more, and we're communicating differently. Then here's the 1960s and everything that was then, and here's, Mahalia Jackson and Curtis Mayfield and Marvin Gaye and just those leaders and artists during that time period. And, here we are today. And just like, so art is such a very important part of who we are. And there's, economic value to what that is, but it's also about our culture and our identity, which we're working to preserve.
And you guys are all over the city of Indianapolis. Tell us a little bit about some of the events that you guys have been able to bring to the city.
Yeah, it's been cool, man. Working out of Indianapolis, and just one of our first really big opportunities was creative directors of March Madness when the NCAA ascended the tournament on, our city, for the entirety of the tournament. And we curated over 260 live performances that happened within the 4-week week period. And, just having opportunities like that has been amazing, working out of, what is the sports capital of the world. And we get to host so many amazing events here in Indianapolis.
Probably our most visible output of Gang so far has been Butter Fine Art Fair.
Yeah.
Butter Fine Art Fair. We launched it in 2020. Like I said, as a tactic for equity in action, as a way to protect the artist and the artist's voice, and to recognize the talent in Indiana, and that we are on par with established artists from around the world. Yeah. So Butter puts all of those voices and perspectives on the same ticket, on the same platform, in the same space, and has become a cultural movement that is expanding to Los Angeles for the first time out of Indiana. So, we started something that Indianapolis promoted and protected and supported, from the economic development level to the tourism level to the community level to the private level and public. It's been supported and it has worked. And we thought that we were making Indy's first Black Fine Art Fair, and then we were like, oh, this is Indiana's. Oh, this is the Midwest. Oh, this is the nation. Oh, what do you mean there's not an equitable fine art fair in the world yet? And so, oh my goodness, this has started in the middle of Indiana and has authentically spread to, Los Angeles. That community has come to Butter in Indianapolis and said, wait a minute, what is this? Wait a minute, what are you doing here? This needs to be in LA. This needs to be in the second largest art capital in the nation. And so we are very excited to launch there in Black History Month 2026.
Yeah, and what makes Butter so unique and different, is that 100% of the sales go back to the artists. And we center the care and economic just value and worth of these artists, and it gives us an opportunity to challenge dichotomies between value and worth. And we know what our art is, and just how much it's worth, but the worth is a cost associated to the value. So Butter allows us to kind of close that gap by giving 100% back, which that's what our artists deserve. So it allows us an opportunity to do that in a very fun and bright way that brings people together. And we've gone from selling $65,000 worth of art, the very first Butter, to 5 years later being over $1.2 million going back to the hands of households of our local artists and nationwide artists. It's pretty cool.
And I want to, show some video, because I want to give folks at home an idea of just how cool Butter is. It's certainly been life-changing for me. I had a great time on the last day of Butter, singing gospel music in the middle of the street. Tell us a little bit more about that open shout session and why you think Butter has resonated so strongly with people of so many different backgrounds.
Wow. Yeah, you want to talk about the music program?
Yeah, Butter is, it's the density of what is our culture. So it's the music, it's the food. It's the singing, it's the dance. And then with the visual art as the centerpiece. But that's who we are, and Butter gets to celebrate everything that is our culture that we've built and grown to love in this country. So I think it allows and we have the density of that experience. That's what makes Butter, pretty special. That is that gravitational pull for about everybody.
And that you can have a shed session in a safe environment, and we can be proud and confident and do that on 10th Street, in downtown Indianapolis, because that's who we are and that's what we do. And so Butter is creating environments that do what we propose, which is to center beauty, equity, and culture. And that's what you feel when that happens.
Right on. Yeah.
Tell me what's next for you guys.
Well, we are spreading the word about the spread of Butter. We are inviting the world, the culture, to join us February 26th through March 1st in Inglewood. This is Inglewood's first Black Fine Art Fair. We are so excited.
Let's go.
Has welcomed us. The Inglewood Unified School District is on board. There's going to be an education day. And so this is an important moment for the arts and moment for art fairs. We are disrupting the model. To come to LA Art Week and to introduce a fair is bold at all, but to say, this is the Black Art Fair, this is the fair with a cause. This is the fair that's accessible, so it is important to support this effort. And so we hope to see everybody February 26th through March 1 in Inglewood. and support gang gang.
Yeah, right.
Support gang gang. Support gang gang. Sustain gang gang and voices that are advocating for the value and the worth of artists and cultural and creative entrepreneurs.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us on the breakdown. And for folks at home to learn more about Gang Gang and the programs they host or how you can be a part of the movement, just go to their website, ganggangculture.com. Molly Bacon and Al Bacon, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for the work that you're doing to center culture and community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the time.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Welcome back. Our nation's democracy is currently under attack with 2 fatal shootings within a month in Minnesota. Matters only seem to get worse. WURD radio host and educator Dr. James Peterson's new opinion piece connects those shootings to broader issues of authoritarian nationalism, but also to shine a light on the history behind who receives public outrage and sympathy after a deadly encounter with law enforcement. Dr. James Peterson, we want to thank you for joining us today on The Breakdown.
Thank you for having me, Brittany. How are you?
I am doing well. It's wonderful to have you on here. In your article, tell us a little bit about what prompted you to even write this.
Well, I'm like many people, I'm inspired by the work of Toni Morrison. And for folks who read Morrison, you know, the opening lines for her novels are quite extraordinary. And so the opening lines for a novel called Paradise is they shoot the white girl first. And so when Renee Nicole Good was murdered in the streets of Minneapolis, that line came to mind. And then, you know, as a writer, you know this, Brittany, things will sit on your brain until you kind of work them out in the way that you do as a journalist or as a writer. And so I started to think about what this moment meant. And I'll be honest with you, Brittany, I had no idea at that time that within the next 16 or 17 days, they would murder someone else in the streets of Minneapolis. But what I didn't know was that was a watershed moment, that was going to get the attention, the eyes and the ears of white America in ways that even George Floyd didn't, right? That was going to chart a course for this nation, that the kind of brutality that Black and brown folks suffer under the boot of this iteration of America's anti-immigration policies through ICE and otherwise. Black and brown folks experience this all the time. There are people dying in custody in Texas. We don't hear too much about that. The 5-year-old boy, we did hear about that, but there are things happening to Black and Latino and Hispanic communities that maybe the broader community is not always experiencing. But the shooting and killing of Renee Good, the shooting of Mr. Prey this past weekend, those things are going to strike a different chord. It shatters the veneer of safety for many white Americans who maybe in the campaign supported some semblance of an anti-immigration campaign, a deportation campaign. But when it looks like this, I think they have to respond to it and think about it differently.
You write that George Floyd was killed not too far away from where Good died. Talk about the broader issues of authoritarian nationalism, now amplified by an erosion of public faith.
Just to be clear, Black America has yet to recover from the issues raised by the Black Lives Matter movement, including Natasha McKinney, including the death of George Floyd and many, many others, right? Our relationship with law enforcement will forever be fraught because of the ways in which law enforcement has committed crimes within our community and against members of our community. We always want to draw attention to these issues, always. But we're in a moment right now under the boot of this particular administration, particularly its anti-immigration policies and the deputizing, essentially, of undertrained federal officers through the ICE agency. We're seeing a level of tyranny that I think is more rampant and more regularized than most white folks in this country are used to. And so this is a moment of potential solidarity, Brittany. And I don't want to be like, we told you so, but Black folks have every right to say right now, like, they're going to shoot a white woman, they're going to shoot a white guy, they're going to shoot anybody, right? Black folks have the right to say right now, we told you so. We told you that this kind of unchecked authoritarianism emanating in our law enforcement entities, when it targets folks or targets certain communities, it can kill or it can hurt or harm anyone. We've been saying this for decades now. And so it's not chickens coming home to roost. We're not, I told you so. We're saying, hey, welcome to the fight. Welcome to the moment that we've been wrestling with for a long time.
Go into detail just a little bit more. Like, why is Renee Good's death? How is it highlighting how violence in America is ordered and hierarchical?
Well, so generally speaking, the hierarchy of police violence, unlawful police violence, is as follows. If it's directed against our community, the Black community, the Latino community, if it's directed against poor folks, a lot of excuses are made. There are a lot of off ramps. There's qualified immunity. There are unions with big budgets. And then even when folks do sue to get some kind of recourse, it's taxpayers that foot the bill. So when it happens in our community, it does, still continues to happen in our community. When law enforcement behaves badly in our community, when police brutality harms someone in our community, there are lots of different checks and balances against us seeking and pursuing justice. Unfortunately, what they have trained and practiced doing in our communities, which is at times killing people within the Black community, killing people within the poor Black and Latino communities with impunity, they've practiced it enough now, Brittany, that they can do it at this large scale. They can kill middle-class white folks. They can kill an ICU veterans nurse, and they still haven't released the identity of the person who actually shot him. Right? Think about how unconscionable this is, Brittany. We do know that Jonathan Ross killed Renee Good, but as of right now, we do not know the names of the ICE agents who we've all seen on video shoot Mr. Preddy to death in the streets. That kind of impunity, again, it's sadly and tragically, it is not unfamiliar to members of the Black community, right? We had to fight to get every name of every law enforcement officer who put his boot on the neck of an innocent, unarmed Black person. But again, they practice in our communities what they're doing now on a large scale. That is where that authoritarianism sort of comes into play. This is a nation right now that has a president at the helm that is leading a movement that believes in a white ethno-nationalist state, right? They believe that this country really is just for white folks. There's always been people here who believe that, Brittany. But to have it realized politically at the federal level, to have it realized in a presidential administration is probably something I have not seen or confronted so directly in my lifetime. And so the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, these things, they're reflective of this administration's policies. They campaigned on this, Brittany. They weren't ashamed of this. They campaigned on this, and now they're meeting out this policy in ways that's violent, it's unchecked, and this is why we're seeing so much unrest and so much resistance right now nationally to ICE. It's not just Minneapolis that's saying ICE get out. They're saying it here in Philadelphia. They're saying it in Chicago. They're saying it in Louisiana. People do not want to deal with this level of tyranny in the federal government.
So to be clear, your argument is that white supremacy is really the bedrock beneath all of this.
Without question, without question. I mean, I'm not saying anything, Brittany, that is new. White supremacy animates a lot of this nation's history. Think about what happened this week in Philadelphia, right? You had federal officials from the Office of the Interior remove the exhibit that honors the enslaved folks who were enslaved by the founding president of the United States. Right? George Washington owned slaves. He owned hundreds of slaves in Mount Vernon, but he owned about 8, maybe 9 slaves here in Philadelphia at the first White House. We're getting ready to celebrate the semi-quincentennial of this nation in Philadelphia, Brittany, right? George Washington owned slaves right here in Philadelphia at the founding of this nation. And this administration removed the exhibit, the only one of its kind, removed the exhibit from the federal properties here in Philadelphia that honored the lives of those who were enslaved by the founding president of the United States. So white supremacy has been a part of the United States since its founding. There's no surprise there. It's interesting to see how it rears its head through the ideology of folks like Stephen Miller in President Trump's administration, through ICE policy. You see that the Housing Authority, HUD, now is implementing ICE-like policies, saying now they got to check the citizenship of everybody that's in urban housing, or they're going to pull federal funding for it. You've seen it in the anti-Black, anti-DEI executive orders coming from this president. The systematic attempts to erase Black history, not just here in Philadelphia, but everywhere it can, micromanaging and trying to control the curation of the arts by the subject matter experts at the Smithsonian Institute, including the National Museum of African American History and Culture. This is not white supremacy undercover. This is operating as policy with the current administration.
Dr. James Peterson, we thank you so much for coming on The Breakdown today and for sharing your noble thoughts. If you want to read more of Dr. Peterson's work, you can go to URL Media. His writing is called "They Shoot the White Girl First." Dr. James Peterson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brittany, and congrats on the show. I love it. I'll be watching along. It's good work.
Thank you. We appreciate your support. And folks, tonight, Roland Martin will talk to a Minneapolis City Council member as we continue the conversation surrounding ICE in that city. Tune in tonight, 6:00 p.m. Eastern on the Black Star Network. We have more of The Breakdown coming up. Stay with us.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Welcome back. We want to highlight an author for our For the Culture segment. We'll have Eddie Williams joining us today. He can tell us more about the Affinity book. Eddie, have you entered the chat? Are you there? I know my producer is working hard on the other end, trying to make sure that Eddie can come up, and we will give them just a second, folks. While we have a moment, we just want to remind you that we truly appreciate your support here on the Black Star Network. You can always go to our website, theblacknetwork.com, and view stories there 24 hours a day. We are working on news around the clock for you to make sure that you have all the information that you need to stay up to date about what is happening around us. Roland Martin, of course, will have his show later on today, Roland Martin Unfiltered. That starts at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And we also want to remind you that coming up tonight on Roland Martin Unfiltered, he will have an exclusive conversation about a police-involved killing that shook the nation. Again, Roland will interview Karen Locke. She is the mother of Amir Locke. They will talk about her son's death at the hands of police and her fight for accountability. That interview will be at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Again, his show starts at 6 o'clock. Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We want to thank you so much for joining us today on The Breakdown. And we have so much more in store for you tomorrow. So we hope that you'll join us again for The Breakdown with me, your host, Brittany Noble. Of course, you can follow me on social media. I am The Noble Journalist. We certainly appreciate your support, and we hope that you have a wonderful day.